This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mark Reeves, Executive Director of Tennessee Secondary School Athletic Association. Very glad to be with you, all of you, and certainly want to thank you for taking some time this afternoon to join us for this TIAAA, TIAAA New Athletic Director Orientation. Excited about what we have to offer today. I know this is something that this will be our third year, I believe, that we've held an opportunity like this, and I know it's been well received, and just thankful for all of you taking advantage of this opportunity. I'm gonna hold off on introducing members of our staff who are ultimately gonna be doing some presenting until it's their time to present. But I do want to let you know that we do have the chat available, and we have members of our staff who are going to be monitoring that. So if you have questions that come up during the course of the presentation, feel free to enter those into the chat, and we will try to respond to those as they come in. I know that we've got a lot of information to cover. Certainly appreciate our friends from the TIAAA joining us. The way that this is going to work, TSSAA is going to take the lead, and we're going to present our material first. Then we will probably take about a 5-minute break and then turn it over to TIAAA. Everything should be finished here. It should take 1 hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours. So we should be done in plenty of time for some of you to get to your afternoon responsibilities. I'm going to yield my time to Miss Emily Crowell, one of our assistant executive directors. She's going to give you an overview of the association and its governance. Emily?
All right, so for those of you who truly are new, we're going to assume that you don't know anything about our organization. So I'm going to go through a quick run through of who we are and what we do. So the TSSAA is a voluntary, nonprofit, self-supported organization that was founded in 1925 by school teachers, principals, and superintendents on the belief that school-sponsored athletics are a positive and valuable asset to the educational experience. The association belongs to the member schools and is operated under its guidance. One of the ways we maintain that school-sponsored athletics remain worthwhile for member schools is by maintaining a standard for school sports that is in line with member schools' missions and provides value to students, schools, and society. Just as we try to align with the missions of our member schools, the TSSAA has its own mission statement, which highlights our role in providing leadership and coordination for the administration of interscholastic athletics, as well as our desire to promote participation and sportsmanship, all while helping to achieve educational goals. So how do we work? If you're new, you may not be familiar with all of this, but we do operate as the governing body of secondary school sports in the state. We're comprised of a board of control as our executive authority and a legislative council as our legislative authority. Each of these bodies is made up of 12 elected school administrators from all areas of the state serving 3-year terms. The TSSAA office employs 17 individuals who perform the day-to-day operations required to enact the policies of the board, council, and member schools, including eligibility, classification, sport rules, game officials, and conducting postseason tournaments and state championships, to name a few. Schools that wish to propose changes should be in contact with their board and council representatives. Regional meetings are held each November with the purpose of electing members to the board and council and to consider proposals to amend the Constitution and bylaws. Member schools can submit such proposals to the TSSAA office by October 15th each year to be voted on by the membership at the regional meetings. An administrator from every member school must be present at the annual regional meeting. Our middle school association is also under the jurisdiction of the board and council, but additionally has a TMSAA committee made up of 9 school administrators, 3 from each area of the state, that provides guidance to our office for TMSAA matters. We know that principals have enough on their plate, so our primary point of contact for any TIAAA business will first be the athletic director. We lean on ADs to be the messenger within your school community for all athletics related business, as well as the main person who is ensuring your school is in compliance with the TIAAA bylaws and constitution in all that you do. We distribute a lot of information via email, so we expect ADs to be circulating that information where it is needed. We also prefer to speak with ADs about any issues that may arise in your school instead of coaches, students, and especially parents in your school community. We will always try to be as accessible as possible in working with ADs at our member schools, so feel free to email us or give us a call here at our office. At this time, I'm going to introduce Lauren Jones in our office, and she is going to go over some eligibility best practices.
Thanks, Emily. I am Lauren Jones, and I am Mr. Reeves' assistant and deal primarily with high school eligibility. So I'm going to be walking you through the more basic eligibility rules that you're going to be dealing with most often, and we're just going to take them in the order that they come in the handbook. So if you've got your handbook accessible, you can pull it up on our website and kind of follow along that way. The first area that we're going to look at is in Article 2. That's where all of your eligibility rules are going to be found. And the preamble of Article 2 actually gives some really important information that people miss quite frequently. And these are the rules that actually apply for junior varsity competition as well as varsity competition. So all of our eligibility rules apply at the varsity level, but these rules listed here in the preamble are the only ones that if a student is in violation of them, that will make them ineligible at the junior varsity level of competition as well as varsity. Even if you have a student who is ineligible junior varsity and varsity, they can still practice with the team. So we try to provide participation for all of our students, even if they don't meet all of the eligibility rules. So again, all eligibility rules apply at the varsity level. These are the ones you need to watch out for junior varsity participation. The next set of rules that we come to are academics. And for all of our eligibility rules, most of them are the same for middle school and high school. I'm going to be pointing out a handful of differences between the middle school rules and the high school rules, because I do know we have a few middle school administrators on here as well. So for the academic rule for high school, it is always based on the school where the student ended the school year the previous year. So if you have a transfer student coming in at the high school level, you're going to need to find out the requirements of their previous school. And if the school requires less than 24 credits for graduation, that student needed to earn at least 5 credits last school year in order to be academically eligible this year. If the school requires 24 or more credits for graduation, then the student needed to earn 6 credits last school year. And again, it's based on where they were enrolled at the end of 21-22, not 22-23. For middle school, the rule simply states that in order to be eligible, they need to be academically promoted to the next higher grade. It does have to be an academic promotion. So pretty cut and dry. If a student is repeating a grade, they're going to be ineligible to participate. And let me back up to the high school rule again. For any of your incoming 8th or 9th graders, their academic rule is basically the same as the middle school. They have to have been academically promoted to the 8th or 9th grade in order to participate. If you have a student who is ineligible to start this school year here in August, they did not earn enough credits last year, they're ineligible to participate, they will have the opportunity to become eligible the second semester by passing at least 5 subjects or 3 blocks or the equivalent. In January on the portal, we will add an option on the academic question to cover these kids. There will be an option that says the student was ineligible the first semester and they passed 5 classes, so now they're eligible. You will not see that until January though, because these students cannot participate till the first day of the second semester. One of the questions that we get a lot is if a student can lose academic eligibility after the start of the school year. So I'm eligible in August, and for whatever reason, I'm not doing what I need to do. Can I actually become academically ineligible later in the year? And for TIAAA, the answer is no. If you start the school year academically eligible, you will remain eligible the entire school year. We will remind you that TIAAA requirements are minimum standards. So if your school administration decides that you want to enforce something more strict than our rule, that is totally fine by us. But by TIAAA rule, a student cannot lose academic eligibility during the school year. The next set of rules we're going to take a look at are the semester rules. For middle school, the semester rule states that a student has 6 semesters to complete 4 possible semesters of participation after entering the 7th grade. So the real life example of what this looks like is you have a student who enters 7th grade for the first time and participates. That's 2 semesters. And then they repeat the 7th grade, they're going to be ineligible. So there's 2 semesters where they're not participating. When they go to the 8th grade the following year, they'll still have those 2 semesters to participate in the 8th grade. So 6 total semesters to complete 4 possible semesters of participation. The high school 8 semester rule works a little bit differently, and it is all based on when a student first enters 9th grade, and the clock starts ticking. They get 8 semesters once they enter the 9th grade for the first time. So the question that you'll ask is, when is a student in the 9th grade for the first time? And by our rule, if a student registers for 2 or more 9th grade subjects after completing 8th grade for 1 year, they're going to be a 9th grader and classified as a high school student for athletics. And so then once they're in 9th grade, they have 8 total semesters of athletic eligibility. And it is a continuous clock. If they are enrolled in school, it counts as a semester. It can be enrolled in a member school, a non-member school, a home school, a school out of state, any school. If they're enrolled, it's going to count as one of their 8 semesters, regardless of if they actually participate in athletics during that semester. If they attend school for less than 40 days and they don't participate in athletics, then that will not count as a semester. So attendance of 40 school days of any semester is going to be a semester under the rule. And then if they participate in athletics for any number of days of a semester, it will count as a semester. So that's what we're looking at to determine if they've used up one of their 8 possible semesters of participation. Next up is the middle school repeating rule. And it states that any student who repeats 6th, 7th, or 8th grade shall not be eligible until they have reached the next higher grade. And we do consider a student to be in a grade once they have attended classes in that grade for 3 or more days. So you can play in the 6th grade, you can play in the 7th grade. If you repeat 7th grade, you are not going to be eligible that year you are repeating. The high school repeating rule is based off of the middle school repeating rule, and it states that a student who repeats the 6th, 7th, or 8th grade and plays in an interscholastic contest while repeating shall be ineligible in all sports and all levels in the 9th grade. And the reason this is in the high school book is that our member middle schools don't allow their students to participate in school athletics while they're repeating. When we get to high school, we have a lot of students coming in who are from non-member middle schools. And so they may have had the opportunity to play that extra year or sometimes 2 years at the middle school level because their school did not have to follow our rules. So those students, if they participated in school athletics while repeating, will get caught when they come up to the 9th grade level, and they will then be ineligible in the 9th grade. For high school, you can participate the year you are repeating. So if you attend high school in 9th grade and then you repeat 9th grade, you can participate that second 9th grade year. So that is different than the middle school rule. The age limit for middle school is that no student is eligible to compete if they become 15 on or before August 1st. And then at the high school level, it's the exact same, except it's 19 years of age on or before August 1st. If you're younger than that, you're going to be good to go. So that one's pretty cut and dry, pretty basic. Students changing schools. This is where y'all are going to be spending a lot of your time. This is where we get most of our questions, our transfer students going from one school to another. The first thing I'm going to bring your attention to is the residence rule. And this is for any student changing schools for any reason. They have to be, in order to be eligible, they have to live at home with a parent or guardian, and then it lists a handful of exceptions. What we really want to point out for this is that this is students changing schools for any reason. So these are 8th graders coming up to high school, to a new school. These are students, even if they don't have an athletic record, the residence rule applies. So any student changing schools, they've not been in your building for 12 or more months, they're considered a student changing schools, and the residence rule will apply. And in order to really get a good interpretation for the residence rule, you need to look at our definitions in the handbook. This is, y'all will hear me probably bring up definitions a couple of times during this presentation because people miss them. They are at the beginning of the bylaws on page 7 of our handbook. And I really encourage you to read through all of them because they're really important to get the right interpretation for a lot of our rules. For the residence rule in particular, you need to look at the definition for both parent and for guardian. Parent is pretty self-explanatory. We're talking biological parents, adoptive parents, step parents who the student regularly resides with. For guardian, this is what we see get missed almost daily when people are submitting eligibility. A guardian by TIAAA definition is an adult with whom the student has lived for 12 or more consecutive months. We do not require that they have power of attorney. We do not require that they have been appointed by a court. But even if one of those things has happened, they still cannot be considered a guardian until the student has lived with them for 12 months. So if you have a child that lived with mom last year and they've transferred and just moved in with aunt, for whatever reason, they're not going to meet the residence rule because they have not lived with that new guardian for 12 months yet. And that will make the student ineligible at the varsity level in all athletics until they have either lived with the guardian for 12 months or been enrolled in your school for 12 months. Moving on to the transfers. This is Articles 2, Sections 12 and 13. 12 gives you your eligible transfer students and 13 gives you your ineligible transfer students. And it is important to look at both sections. A lot of times we have people who only look at Section 12 and may miss something that makes a kid ineligible. The bona fide change of residence rule is the one you're going to be dealing with more than any other. Either there will be a bona fide change of residence and the child will be eligible, or there will not be one and they will be ineligible. So this is where y'all are going to be really spending most of your time on transfer students. There has been a bona fide change of residence if there is a move by the student's entire family unit. So everyone who is living at Residence A has made the move to Residence B, and no one is using Residence A for any residential purposes anymore. The old residence has to be outside the territory of the new school. The new residence has to be outside the territory of the old school, and the new residence has to be inside the territory of the new school. So all three of those requirements have to be met. And then if they're all met, there are also some timing requirements as far as when the transfer can actually take place. So if the move from one residence to the other takes place in between school years during the summer, the student needs to be enrolled in the new school at the start of the new school year. If the move takes place sometime during the school year, the student will have 4 opportunities to transfer and maintain their eligibility. And that's at the time that they move, they change residences. They can wait till the end of the next report card period. They can wait till the end of the next semester or term, or they can actually stay in school that whole year, finish out the school year, and then transfer for the start of the next school year and still maintain their eligibility. Back to our definitions page. Again, there's a definition there for bona fide change of residence. The important part of this is that we don't recognize dual residences. So the move has to be one that justifies changing schools from one community to another, and they cannot be using that original residence in any way for residential purposes. Territory is the definition that you really need to watch out for bona fide change of residence. Depending on the type of school that the student is either leaving or going to, they have different definitions for territory. For your public school, the territory is simply the zone lines and bus routes assigned to that school by the local Board of Education. So if I walk out my front door and the bus picks me up and takes me to school A, I'm living in school A's territory. For system-wide public schools, these are your charter schools, your magnet schools. The territory is the geographic boundaries of the entire school system, because I can live anywhere in that school system and choose to attend one of those charter or magnet schools. So for the example for Nashville, for Metro Nashville Public Schools, I'm attending Hume Fogg. That is a system-wide public school. If I live anywhere within Davidson County, MNPS, I'm living within that territory. And then finally, for private schools, they are not assigned zone lines, bus routes, anything by a local Board of Education because they're independent. So we assign a territory to them, and it is established by taking a 20-mile radius straight out in all directions from the private school. It creates a big circle around the school, and then anything that falls inside of that circle is going to be inside the private school's territory. And I will just caution you that 20 miles straight out is a lot further than driving distance. People will do Google Maps to put in, where the family lives, and it's generally not going to be accurate. So we are happy to look those up for you. We have a mapping system where we can plug in the private school and make a determination if the family is living inside or outside of that territory. And we're happy to do that. So just email us if you have one and we'll take a look at it. When you have a transfer student come in, there's a few basic questions that you want to ask about. We always recommend that you go straight to the source and get the information from the previous school's administration. Parents don't intend to lead us astray, but sometimes we get misinformation if we're not getting it from the previous school. So the first thing you want to ask about is an athletic record. Does the student have an athletic record in any sports in the last 12 months? And what gets missed on athletic record more often than you would think, and this again is in the definitions, but it is a participation in a contest at any level of competition. A lot of people think it is just varsity competition, and that is inaccurate. An athletic record is established at the varsity, junior varsity, 9th grade, any other level. If the student participates in a contest, they will have an athletic record. It does have to be on behalf of one of our member schools, that a member of TIAAA or TMSAA, or a member of another state's association. So if you have a student coming in from Georgia, they attended school in Georgia, that's a member of the Georgia Association, their athletic record there will come into play and will be impactful on our eligibility rules. There are a few schools in Tennessee that are not members. You don't have to worry about them. Those students will not have athletic records if they only participated for a non-member school. Next thing you're going to want to find out if they do have an athletic record is what is that last participation date. And this is the date of the last contest where they actually played. If the student dressed out but stayed on the bench, that's not going to count. We're looking for the last game that they actually saw playing time. And again, that is the last contest at any level of competition, junior varsity, varsity, 9th grade, etc. And where that comes into play, if you have an ineligible transfer student, they're going to be ineligible at the varsity level 12 months from that date. And then finally, the practice rule is one that people seem to forget about, particularly if you have a student with no athletic record who transfers in after the start of the school year. People assume, no athletic record, they're good to go. You need to find out if they have practiced 3 or more days after the first official practice date in a sport for the current school year. If they did, whether they have an athletic record or not, they're going to be ineligible at the varsity level this school year in that sport. So those are the 3 biggies that you need to ask about and have that good information to give to us when you're submitting eligibility. A couple of special eligibility things that we're going to cover really quick. Like all of this hasn't been really quick, I do apologize to speed through all of the hardship handbook with y'all, but the hardship exceptions is your opportunity to ask for an exception to basically any of our eligibility rules. We see them mostly for transfer students, but it can be for other things like academic rule, even if the student is not a transfer student. So the hardship application is on our TIAAA.org website. It's not on the portal. It's a print it out, fill it out form, and then you can scan it in and email it. For the high school level to me or Mr. Reeves. At the middle school level, it would go to Richard McWhorter or Emily Crowell. And the hardship rule states that it can only be approved for unforeseen or unavoidable circumstances, and they are completely taken case by case. They're reviewed diligently, and the best thing that you can do for your students if you're submitting a hardship application is to give us the most information possible. Attach additional documentation to that hardship form. Let us know, all the details of the situation so that the best decision can be made. We do ask that you attach a letter from the previous school that states at the minimum that the transfer, if it's a transfer student, was not for athletic or disciplinary reasons. A lot of times we get a lot more information than that from the previous school, especially if they're in support of the hardship. That can be very helpful. Do not submit transfers or hardships until the student meets our definition of enrolled. And that is that they have either attended 3 days of classes, or if they're participating in a fall sport, that they have participated in at least 3 days of practice with that fall sport after the first official date of practice. We cannot rule on them until after that definition is met. And then finally, the hardship rule does not give us the authority to rule or grant hardships based on the age or semester rules. So if a student is too old or if they've been in school too long, even if it's for very good reason, we cannot by rule on those hardships and grant an exception. And then finally, we're going to talk a little bit about homeschool students. It seems like every year we're getting more and more of these. So A few highlights: the homeschool is in section 25, and there's a laundry list of requirements that they must meet. So this is not an exhaustive list. This is just the highlights. But the student must notify the principal that they want to participate as a homeschool student at their school prior to the first practice date in the specific sport. This is a change from previous years. Previously, all students had to notify by August 15th. This has changed for this year. So now for your winter sports and your spring sports, it gives them a little bit more time if they decide to participate after the start of the school year. They're still going to be okay as long as they make that notification prior to the first practice date. All homeschool students must be enrolled in at least 5 academic classes, and they must have legal residence within the school district, or if they're wanting to participate at a private school, they can have a legal residence within that 20-mile radius territory of the private school. By TIAAA rule, a homeschool student can participate at any school within the district where they live. They do not have to just participate at their zone school. However, a lot of school districts have a rule that is more strict than ours and do require them to play at their zone school, and that's fine with us. But by TIAAA, it's not required. They have to have proof of liability insurance with TIAAA listed as an additional insured party, or if they do not, they can submit the signed indemnity agreement, and that's really what we see more often. They do have to meet all other TIAAA eligibility requirements, and one thing we always want to point out is that the transfer rules do have to be enforced if you have a student who transfers to or from a homeschool after they have established their athletic record, even if they're going to be playing for the same school. So if you have an enrolled student this year participating and the next year they transfer to homeschool and want to keep playing for you, the transfer rule will make them ineligible at the varsity level. If they meet all the homeschool requirements, they could still play JV. Procedurally, what you're going to do is enter the student in the portal the same way you do your enrolled students. You'll add the student, answer the eligibility question. On the very first one, there's an option for homeschool students, and it will send you over to the homeschool form. And then it's a series of yes or no questions. You'll fill that out, upload the indemnity agreement if it's required, and then that comes to us and we'll get a response back to you similar to the way we do transfer students. So that was a whirlwind, and I really do apologize for doing it so quickly, but I think that's all I've got, and I'm going to give it back over to Mr. Reeves, who's going to talk to y'all next.
Thank you, Lauren. As she mentioned, that's a lot of information, with eligibility and compliance. And certainly what we would encourage you to do is anytime that you have a question or you're unsure about something, reach out to any one of us. We'll be glad to talk through whatever situation that you may have. Some of them can get quite complicated. So thank you, Lauren. That was a great job. I have a couple of topics to discuss with you briefly. First of which is securing game officials. It's something that's probably on many of your radars already. Many of you might have already reached out to your local officials associations to do this, but on occasion we'll get a call from time to time from a school who may think that it is the TIAAA office that actually signs game officials during the regular season. That is not the case. It's the home school. The home team is going to be responsible for arranging officials with whatever officials association is servicing your area and whatever sport. If you're unsure of who that appropriate point of contact would be, there's a list of our assigning officers on the TIAAA website. If you'll go to TIAAA.org and click on officials information, you'll see the officials association. Actually, you'll see a list of sports. You click on the sport that you're trying to secure officials for, and you will see those contact information for those assigning officers. If you're at a school and it's unsure by looking at that list as to what would be or who would be the appropriate point of contact based on what part of the state you're in, again, that's one that you could send us a quick email and we could certainly get you pointed in the right direction. A number of our schools pay electronically through Arbiter Pay, which is a service that Arbiter provides. Many of you may already be familiar with that. If you're not, that's something that you could certainly contact us. We could give you more information about. But I know a number of our game officials are becoming more and more accustomed to being paid like that. I know a number of our school systems are moving more towards that direction as opposed to issuing checks. But Certainly, either one would probably work in most cases, but we certainly did want to bring that to your attention. The second thing I want to spend just a little bit of time is with catastrophic insurance. Catastrophic insurance is actually was created a number of years ago, 1988 specifically, to address significant injuries and the extreme costs that can come with that. You know, unfortunately, the association has dealt with a number of catastrophic injuries over the years, and certainly when this insurance was brought to fruition, it was to help offset some of those very significant costs. It is expensive, however. It is about a $1 million line item in the TIAAA budget to provide catastrophic insurance for the membership. The premiums are funded through an assessment with the yearly membership renewal that's based on your school's enrollment. Also, there's a fee of $6 for every football participant that you have. You'll see that as part of your membership information. Many of you have already probably completed some of that now. And then 25% of the gate receipts for the football playoff contest are allocated to help offset that $1 million premium for that catastrophic insurance. I do want to, though, reiterate to you that catastrophic name, this is actually a supplemental medical policy. It doesn't necessarily have to be what you might think of a catastrophic injury in order for this to kick in. Basically, the way the policy is written, once the deductible, $15,000 deductible has been met, which that $15,000 could be expenses that are paid out of pocket or even by an athlete's primary care insurance provider or the school system's insurance provider. Once $15,000 worth of expenses have been accrued, then our insurance would kick in after that. Now, when you think in terms of injuries nowadays, if you've got a student who has been injured and there's a possibility that they may have to have surgery, then we all know that the expenses are probably going to exceed $15,000 quite easily. So this is used a lot, and certainly it's there for a reason. If you have not ever made a catastrophic insurance claim, you can do so. There is a section on our website on the health and safety section. At the bottom, there's a link that you can click on for catastrophic insurance. On that page, you will find contact information and instructions for submitting a claim. Mr. Greg Jolly is the representative that we have typically dealt with Loomis and Lipan. And Mr. Jolly is the one who has been a great point of contact for us before. When athletes are actually covered, you'll see that if you're participating in a TIAAA sanctioned sport during the time that's outlined in the sports calendar, athletes are going to be covered during that time. They're going to be covered during summer practice as long as there is a school coach that's in charge. Weightlifting and conditioning is only, though, going to be covered during the season when the team is allowed to actually practice. And preseason scrimmages are certainly an avenue where there is going to be covered. Travel directly to and from an athletic practice or contest with the coach in charge is also a time where coverage is going to be there. But if, for example, you're sending your kids to their destination where games are going to be played independently, that would not be covered. I know that's necessary for a lot of you, but just please understand that there's no catastrophic insurance coverage should something happen in one of those particular situations. Examples of times in which athletes are not covered: again, summer camps. Catastrophic insurance is not going to cover summer camps if it's being held in conjunction with, say, a university, etc. Student athletes are not covered if they're not under the supervision of an approved coach. So if you've got, for example, a non-faculty coach who's not met the requirements for non-faculty coaches or someone who's not been recognized by the administration as a coach for the school, that individual is, or those student athletes would not be covered. Okay. If you have any questions about how to report a claim, and I mentioned those briefly for how you report an incident. I mentioned Greg Jolly and I forget Karen's name. Karen's name on our sheet. Karen Bowler. There you go. Karen is on our contact sheet on our catastrophic insurance page, and they're both very accessible, easy to get in touch with. They can walk you through that process. Greg will actually be with us when we are conducting administrators meetings on the road in September, which you'll have some information coming to you in the not too distant future about those administrators meetings. So certainly if you have any questions about any of the catastrophic insurance coverage or claims, feel free to reach out, and certainly you can reach out to Greg or Karen at any time. You'll see here, there's an example of a claim form, but again, the process for you would be to reach out to Karen or Greg first, and they'll get that squared away and started for you. I do want to mention our Tennessee Athletic Coaches Association, TIAAA. Their support organization for our coaches across the state. You can find more information about TIAAA at TIAAA.net, their website. Mr. Russ Plummer is one of the assistant directors for TIAAA, and I'm not sure if Coach Plummer is on this call with us, but a former girls and boys soccer coach from Hendersonville High School, has certainly taken on a lot with regards to promoting the membership of this great organization. Membership into TIAAA comes with it. What comes with TIAAA membership are two things. Well, there's more than just two things, but the two main things that really are attractive is the liability insurance coverage that comes with membership. There's a $2 million liability policy that goes along with that, but then also membership privileges. You also get admission to TIAAA state championship events through your membership with TIAAA. So a number of schools, a number of school systems purchase membership for their coaches collectively. Some leave that to the individual coach. It's not a requirement to be a part of TIAAA to be a member of TIAAA. We would certainly encourage you to check into that. And you can find contact information for more questions that you may have about that at TIAAA.net. I'm going to turn it over now to Mr. Bradley Lambert, our technology director. He has some information to go over with you with the TIAAA portal.
All right, thank you, Mr. Reeves. Exciting time of year for everybody, and getting into the swing of things. And we'll take a few minutes here to talk about the portal. This is going to be something that if you're an athletic director or a principal for any period of time, you're going to get to know the portal quite well, as it's our primary method in this automated way of communicating back and forth with our member schools and the state office. And so one of the primary things that we do with the portal is keep up with our contact information. And so when a school adds a coach to their directory that is published on our school directory page, the coaches get a login invitation to the portal so that they can get in to look at their schedules, take the rules clinics online. They'll also put in their voucher numbers for in-person meetings and so on and so forth. So it's a very important part of some of the daily activities for you and your coaches. So the first thing we'll do is look at how to log in to the portal. So our logins use your email address. And so many of you have already hopefully been into the portal. Some of you may have signed in with your school ID number, but we would encourage you to, as soon as you assign yourself as the athletic director or the principal or the athletic secretary, that you would continue or that you would from that point forward sign in with your email address. And that way, whenever there's any activity done, it has your name attached to it. And so you'll know, you'll be reminded whether you did something or another person did something. So what we tell folks here is that if your email address is shown on the school's directory page, then you have an account and it's ready to use. If you don't know the password, then on the sign-in page, you would click Forgot Password and follow the instructions there to get a new password set so that you can log in. I'll show you that here in just a second. Of course, we've got our email address that goes to Shawnee, tssaa@tssaa.org. If you have questions about how to sign in, or if you have a problem with your account, and there's our phone number there too. So a quick look here at our school directory page. Of course, this is linked. If you go to the home page at TIAAA.org, there's a link right there for member directory. And so when you pull up your school's directory page, you'll see all of the coaches that are registered, all of the administrators that are registered. Those email addresses that are shown will be your staff members' sign-in addresses for the portal. So if your coach ever wonders, which email address do I sign up with? Well, it'll be the one shown here. All right. So, your staff members, the folks at your school, their level of access to the information in the portal is based on what position you assign them on that coaches and staff page. So when you go there, and I'm going to switch forward here because I've got a screenshot of it here. So this is what your coaches and staff page looks like. So when they sign in, they'll get access that's relevant to their position. School admin access is given to folks assigned as athletic director, athletic secretary, principal, or system athletic director. So that's admin access. Those are all under that school administration box at the top there. So those, again, I'll read them off: athletic director, athletic secretary, principal, or system athletic director. Those are the admin users for your school. So just keep that in mind as you're populating that list. So the main areas of the portal, if you'll see there at the top, I've got a screenshot of what we call the school selector. So if you're with the school system, or maybe you have responsibilities at multiple member schools, you'll be using that school selector at the top of the screen to switch between the different school views. You can also go back to a previous school year and view any information that you need to look at for historical purposes. You can't change any of it, but you can at least go back and look at it for your record keeping purposes. In the upper right hand corner, where your name is shown, you have an option for My Profile. That's where, if you ever need to update your email address, you can do that there. Changing your password every once in a while is not a bad idea. That's where you would do that. And then, of course, the two main tabs on the left-hand side, school and students. This is where your activity at the start of the school year will be. Under school, we would direct you to update your directory information. That's something that needs to be done yearly, just to verify that it is correct. That's also where you would go back and change anything. If you have a change of your fax number, or shipping address has changed, or whatever, you can do that there. That's also where you can upload your school logo. A lot of schools already have that loaded. Your school staff options, your coaches and staff page is there under the school tab. If you would like to post to the bulletin board, that's also where you would do that under the school tab. The meeting credit report, I believe that's called the education report. That's where you as an administrator can see who has credit for what, and what sports may be lacking in rules meeting credit. That's all on one screen right there, and that is the last option under the school tab. You'll also see an option on the school tab called active sports. And so most of you, if you filled out the membership form correctly, you won't ever have to come back here. But if at some point during the school year you decide, well, we've got a few students that want to go out for cross country, we want to add that as a sport. So you would go to active sports, and that's where you would activate boys and girls cross country, and then that would give you the additional options in the portal for assigning a coach, doing your eligibility rosters, and all those things. So that's the school tab. Under students, this is where the student's core information lives. So once you put in a student's core information, they will stay in your system until they have completed 4 years. So once you have a student that enters your building for the first time, you shouldn't have to add any information there that should follow them through year to year. And then on further down, you may be looking at this as we go along. The eligibility tab is where year to year you would see the eligibility status of all of your students. So the first option is the main option, awaiting action. When you click that, it will show you which students need to have the eligibility completed. And for the most part, you'll see that list there, and it'll have a blue button. Answer questions will be the main option there. But if you've already answered the questions and a transfer form needs to be filed for the student, you'll see a button there also for that, for transfer form, and so on and so forth. So that awaiting action, that's your go-to spot there under eligibility. Once you've completed the eligibility for students, you can view those students under eligible students. And so if you've got a transfer student that might be ineligible in 1 or 2 sports, you'll also see those in that list with an orange icon next to those. So the eligible students list, that's important because those are the students that the coaches will see when they sign in to add students to their sport rosters. So if you don't see anybody in the eligible students list, then you need to go to awaiting action and take care of that. We added an option a few years ago called express eligibility, and that is the option where you can with one click, you can declare a student. You can declare a student eligible if they're a returning student and have met the basic requirements. And when you click on there, you'll see what you're vouching for. There's a list of 3 or 4 items, but just check the students off the list there and click the save button, and that will file the eligibility for those students as a bulk action. If you remember, Lauren mentioned the map for seeing a 12-mile radius for addresses and things. We have made a version of the same screen that Lauren uses in our portal system that the school administrators have access to. So that's under the eligibility tab. That's the map tool. So it'll ask you for 2 addresses and pop those in, and it will look up those locations and provide a 20-mile radius circle to help you out. And of course, if you need to call Lauren for any specifics or whatever, then you're still able to do that. The forms tab is where you'll file postseason financial reports and things. You've probably already been doing your membership. That's also located there. The second option under the forms tab I'll make special note of, and that is for submitted forms. So any form that you submit through our system, you can go back and look at later for printing. If you need to print a second copy, you need to go look at what was done. If there's a mistake on a form and you want to correct it, if we haven't already received the form and marked it as received, you can go to submitted forms, delete that submission out and refile it. So that's important to keep in mind if you do have any corrections that need to be made. Under the accounting tab, you can see a financial ledger, and that is the financial status between the association and the school. Printable invoices are available there, and those invoices always print with the current date. We have some issues. Some of the bookkeepers, they like having things with certain dates on it or whatever. You can always go to the accounting tab and print an invoice with the current date. So that should help you with that. The sports tab, that is where your coaches will live, and where the athletic director can also go in and add students to rosters, and then edit the schedules and things like that. We'll look at that in more detail in a moment. What we call rosters, those are eligibility rosters. So every participating student should be listed there. So varsity, junior varsity, freshman, if they're going to practice, they should be on that roster. That goes to what Mr. Reeves was discussing about the insurance. That's the roster they're going to be looking at to determine if they were participating with the team. The roster details button there expands on that student list and allows you to add jersey numbers, positions, and so forth. And then also under the sports tab is sports memberships. We'll get into that in just a moment. Every user that signs into the portal will have an education and resources tab, and that gives information about sports rules books and gets you to the area where you need to go to for the online meetings, online rules clinics. So getting people assigned and in the system is going to be a top priority for you to make sure that the folks that are under your tutelage can get things done that they need to have done. One way that you can use this system to your benefit is by making sure that your assistants have access to the portal. Primarily, I'm speaking about the bookkeeping clerk. A lot of financial things that go on, and they're usually responsible enough that you can give them access by listing them as bookkeeping clerk in the portal, and they can go in and they can submit the forms, they can see invoices, they can do all these things and help take the load off of you. So these three positions, bookkeeping clerk, school secretary, and assistant principal, they can access the financial statements and invoices that are in the system. So they can submit forms, they can see the financial statement, they can print invoices, but they can't see or manipulate any student records, rosters, or schedules. So their access is limited to that area that they would be interested in. If you do, for any reason, want to give access to a staff member that is more broad in nature, if you want to give them access to do eligibility, then that would be, you would need to assign that person as assistant athletic director. So that's the same access as the full athletic director, but that would be listed on our school directory as an assistant, but that's full access to the portal. And just to mention a few of the other positions that we have as options, system athletic director. So if your school district has an athletic director that oversees all of the schools there, you can add them. When they contact us, we can put them in the system for the whole system at once. But we also have spots there for director of schools, folks like athletic trainers, and of course the bookkeeping clerks. And that just gives us and the other schools a point of contact. So when they go to your directory page and they know who they can get in touch with if they not that they would bypass you, but if they do need a question about a financial statement or something in a district or region contest, they can contact the bookkeeping clerk directly. So going back to what the coaches have access to, this is a big part of the system. So the way we operate, the athletic director is responsible for all this information. So by default, we limit the head coach and assistant coach to only doing certain things inside the portal, and that revolves around sports schedules and rosters. So they can't enter core information about students. They can't do transfer forms. They can't answer the eligibility questions. That's the responsibility of the athletic director. What they can do is for the sports that they are assigned to, they can edit schedules for their sport. They can add any eligible students that are in the system to their roster. Okay. They can't remove students from their roster. If they want to do that, they need to come see you. The athletic director needs to be aware of all, if there's any unusual things that are going on, the AD needs to be in the loop on that. Because the eligibility is easy for the returning students, that should make it easier to be an expert on your new students. So those are the access parameters for coaches. Again, if you have any questions about any of this, you can use the chat feature here, and we'll be sure to get your questions answered. One other important thing to note about this is your coaches have the access that they have, but they don't have any access until they're assigned each school year. This is particularly important in the fall sports with golf coaches. Golf coaches wanting to get in and get their rules credit, they can't do that until you have assigned them as a golf coach for, of course, this year, 22-23. The other thing is that until you've assigned an individual as a coach, they won't get any of our emailed information pertaining to their sport until they're assigned. So that's extremely important in terms of the communication, and then making sure that they can get in and get their schedule submitted if you require them to do that, and to get their rules credit. Of course, the insurance component to it also, you want to make sure that any coach that is teaching or has they're watching the students that they are registered for insurance purposes. And then if you do make the state tournament, we do go by that list for issuing coach credentials. So you want to make sure that all your folks are there and listed. So for online rules meetings, of course, the past few years they've all been online, but this year we're getting back into the in-person meetings, which is good. But for the online rules meetings and to submit vouchers, the coaches have to be assigned as a coach in that sport on your coaches and staff page. And then they will sign in with their email address that you've provided. And of course, under the education tab, there is the link for online meetings, and it looks a lot like this. According to the bylaws, the athletic director can gain credit for any of the sports at the school. So when you go to the online rules meetings page, you won't see anything if you're signed in with the school ID. So that's probably our biggest question that we get about this. So this is only available for people who are signed in with their email address. So if you're an AD and you go here and you see nothing, sign in with your email address. That will help tremendously. So the AD can take any meetings. That's the view that we get here. We have all of those begin buttons there, and then the football coach will have access to the football. And this is the same for head coaches or assistant coaches. You may require that the entire staff do this for their sport, and that's a fine idea, but that's not required by our bylaws. One person needs to do it to represent the school and get that credit. Another thing I'll mention briefly, we have some materials on our website that explain this in detail, but we encourage you to enlist a helper there at your school to help with the rosters and the schedules on the website, the roster details and things. If you assign an individual as sports information director on the coaches and staff page, they can add and edit schedules, put in scores, things like that. They can assist with the roster details, such as they can put in all the jersey numbers, height and weight, positions, and things like that. They can't add or remove students from rosters, but they can help with a lot of other things and actually help your coaches with that too. They'll also be listed on your school's directory page as a point of contact, like I mentioned earlier. A lot of the radio folks, people that are traveling in the media, if they're visiting your school, they probably wouldn't mind to have a contact to where they can find out some information about your school, and that's that. So if you'll go on the athletic administrator section of the TSSAA website, you'll find this page, and that describes more in detail what they can do, provides some training materials for them. There's a video that they can watch to explain all the options that they have access to in the portal, and you might use that as maybe a handout or something to help in your recruiting efforts. So here we are. We're still on the school directory. That's kind of where all this comes back to. So a few years ago, we did away with the printed version. As soon as it was printed, it was out of date. So you have a real-time view into the status of all the contact information for all the schools. The link's on the homepage, but if you just want to type it in, it is tssaa.org/directory. So an important thing here is that this shows your active coaches. If they're not on this list, then they don't have portal access, okay? And if they don't have portal access, they can't submit their voucher number for an in-person rules meeting, and they can't do the online rules meeting. So when we have a coach that contacts us saying that they can't do whatever, this is the first place we come and look. Have they been assigned? So if you ever have any question, just look here or on your coaches and staff page inside the portal for that. No name, no portal. The other thing that our school directory pages show, each sport will have a colored star there beside it if that sport has rules credit for that school year. So if you're looking down through there and you've got sports that are missing their stars, that means they don't have rules credit. So every sport should have rules credit except cross country. There's no rules meeting in cross country. So that's very helpful there. The other thing we show here is the co-op information. So if you think your school has a cooperative agreement with another school, but it's not shown here on this page, then it hasn't been approved by the state office. So Heather Carter in our office is handling those now. So that's useful information, but also helps with diagnosing problems when they come up with that. So the other things that are on this page that can be useful and are useful, your school ID is shown here on this screen. Your athletic district is shown on this screen. So you can find out which board member, which council member is your representative. That's shown here. The latest enrollment that we have for your school is also shown on this page. And if you look at the bottom, the total number of non-faculty coaches that your school has is shown at the bottom. And that is a demonstration of that. I will mention here real briefly, because it seems like I just got 2 today on my email addresses. We publish all of the contact information for all the schools. So it's really easy for these scammers to go in here and they can scrape this information out, and they can they can send an email to the principal from somebody else, you know, and saying all this stuff about we need to get some gift cards for somebody's 79th birthday or whatever. They make up all kinds of stuff. Just be aware that this is happening, and particularly your school staff. Emails from TIAAA are going to be from TIAAA.org. So always you want to know how to view the from address. You know, don't just go by the name, but actually look where it's from. We have our email configured so that when it gets sent to your system, if it's not from us, they're supposed to delete it and drop it, which they do. I mean, that's part of the security that we have in place. Just some extra awareness about that going into this new school year. Back on the sports, back in the sports menu, I want to make sure that you're aware of what this sport memberships page does. So this is a page that all administrators and all coaches have access to. So anybody can go in anytime and look at what district, what region, what class is each of our sports in. We also post here and allow the schools to submit information on who is hosting postseason tournaments. So you got a district baseball tournament that's coming up. Once your district has decided who the host of that tournament is going to be, any school in that district can go in here and submit that information. So tournament director, some contact information, what school is hosting, that type of information goes here, and it's also visible here. The other thing that you'll see here is the communication options. So if you see those blue buttons there labeled members, when you click that takes you to a screen that shows every school that's in that group. Just as an example, this is District 3 AAA baseball from a couple of years ago now. But it shows you a directory of all the coaches, all the athletic directors that are in that district or region with contact information. So very handy. I want to point out that below this table, there's some distribution lists. So you can quickly copy and paste a list of email addresses for not only the head coaches, but also the athletic directors here. So you've got the email distribution list, and then in the upper right-hand corner of each one of these pages is the free online video conferencing platform. Each district, each region has its own room. I mean, I would say private room, but that leads you off into thinking about other things. But it is a unique room for each group. And so if all of the head coaches here for this district needed to get together on a conference call, a virtual meeting, then you copy the email addresses here, copy your meeting link, and send that to everybody and say, hey, let's meet up Thursday at 4 o'clock and talk about things. So that's under sport memberships. So under sport, then click memberships. A question we get a lot is, I made a boo-boo, I put in the wrong birth date, or I spelled a name wrong or something. The student core information, the athletic directors can edit that. It wasn't always the case, but it is now. When you click on a student's name, that form will pop up at the top. And so you can correct a misspelling, correct a birth date, and then click save. And of course, the changes are tracked. So, you know, there's logging in place. So if somebody makes a change and there's a question about it later, we can always go back and look at that. But just know that you can quickly make those types of corrections. I mentioned express eligibility a moment ago. The requirements there are shown on the screen. They have to be returning students with a standard filing last school year and you're vouching that they have been enrolled and in regular attendance for the last 12 months and have passed their classes. And that's a checkbox for each of those students. Under the forms section, one thing that if your school is in the postseason a lot, you'll be familiar with the postseason entry forms. These are required once we get closer to the state championships, required of all region finalists. And of course, we send emails requesting this stuff and everything too. So this is nothing to worry about. But these are forms that have to be completed by a school administrator. Is you're vouching for who your coaches are, who is going to be the supervisor, who is on the team, what the records are, things like that. And also where if you don't have your school logo, that would be supplied and things like that. Some of the sports we require team photos and things like that. So those are all there under the form section. Questions we get a lot about game schedules. And I'll go ahead and go here to the screenshot. If you're facing only one opponent, then you'll use that option on the left for single, the single opponent. If it's a tournament or a three-way or whatever, where you've got a lot of teams that are coming together, or you don't know exactly who you're going to play, but that you're going to go to a tournament, maybe a winter tournament in basketball, then you would use the tournament option. When you add games for certain sports, such as basketball, if you're adding a contest for boys basketball, once you click the submit button, it's going to pop up a screen and it's going to offer to make an identical copy of that game information on the girls' schedule. And so be on the lookout for that. That would save you a lot of time for those sports where the boys and the girls play on the same date, the same opponent. Our game schedules differ from our rosters. We only want varsity contests on the game schedules. And what we do is we post all these schedules and rosters on TIAAAsports.com. So that's kind of outside the scope of this session today. But if you go to TIAAAsports.com, click on sports, and then you can look at the rosters and schedules. There's links at the top of each sport page that will make this information visible to members of the media, to the public in general. And this is saying exactly what I just said, but the roster details page, the LT column, that's for light jersey numbers. DK is for dark jersey numbers. And then you'll see drop down boxes for positions, height and weight options there. You can even put in golf scores. It will handle those win losses correctly. And then the last thing I have, I believe, one of the last things is our forms for our academic awards. This is a screenshot of what that new form page looks like. You can see a lot of options there, but there towards the top is the awards section. And so our academic awards, we're very proud of those, and we want you to submit this and get these certificates for your students who have earned them in the classroom. So these are for high achieving teams and individuals. We publish a list of the teams who have been given these awards on our homepage at TIAAA.org. But what you'll do through the portal is submit the GPA information for the team. And of course, this is an administrator action. The coaches can't do it, but maybe you want them to help you gather the information that's needed or whatever. They may come and remind you, hey, we want to get these academic awards. So you'll at least know what they're talking about and know where to find it. One thing that we did last year, which has streamlined this quite a bit, is once you submit the information in the portal, you can immediately print the completed certificates with the students' names on them from the portal. So it will generate those PDFs. There's 4 different types of certificates. And so once you get in there and look at that, you'll be able to print those out on a standard letter sheet of paper, or we would recommend you get some cardstock or something so that it holds up better. But you can print those directly at the school. And then the other thing that we've added here too is our multi-sport athlete recognition. And this is for students who participate in 3 or more sports. And they love getting these. This is something that you can present to them. I will remind you to make sure to add your JV players to the roster so that they can get these certificates and things. There's also a link there for certificates about or for your coaches and possibly even the administrators. So if you do have athletic programs at your school that are making sure that all the students are involved in as many sports as they want to be involved in, then you'll have some really nice certificates there. The other thing we'll be adding here within the next several months is, or not weeks, months, is the certificates for championship participation. And those will be here in the same location. And those will these all draw from your rosters that you have in the portal. So there's not going to be any re-entry of names and things like that. So we're keeping the typing to a minimum. Once you put the students in there, they're in there, and those names will be used on the certificates. So to wrap things up, if you need help in the portal, all right, there's a blue button on the right-hand side called Need Help. And so when you click on that, it kind of captures where you are in the portal and allows you to send a message to us asking for assistance. So if you need help, if you've made a mistake with the questionnaire for eligibility, you can go to the student's page where the mistake is, click that Need Help button and say, hey, I need to redo this or whatever. And that gets us that information and we can help you out quickly. We have a knowledge base. When you click Need Help, it actually lets you search through that there too, but you can go there. It's also linked in the upper right-hand corner of the portal. A lot of commonly asked questions are answered there. And we do have that portal help page that's on the website when you click on the portal login, and there's some helpful tips there. So a lot of help resources. And then on the dashboard of the portal is a series of videos that you can watch and follow along with as you learn how to find your way through the portal. Our website has specific areas, kind of like home pages, landing pages for all of our various interest groups. And so for you all as athletic administrators, I would encourage you to go to the website, find that page under My TIAAA and bookmark that. And so that's kind of your landing page. It has links to everything, link to the calendar, link just things that you're going to be using on a regular basis are going to be linked there, and makes an excellent homepage. All that information about insurance and making claims and stuff is on that page as well. And speaking of that, what do we have here? Compliance checklist. And that's something that Emily is involved with, and we're going to hand it back over to her. A pleasure working with you this year, and I hope you all have a good one.
All right, real quick, we just wanted to point out one other thing that might be useful, and we'll kind of recap everything we've talked about today. On our website, the compliance checklist, just a useful tool. It's going to serve as a month-by-month guide for ADs as to what you should be doing at each month, all the important things. So make sure you check that out if you want more information It also includes a detailed version of this list of who to contact in the state office. This is also on our website if you go and find our staff list, but any of us can be reached by our first initial and last name at TIAAA.org. That's really all we have from a TIAAA perspective today. Has taken us a little bit longer than we expected to get through our stuff. So we're going to take a quick break. We will jump back on at 2:25. So that's about a 3-minute break with our representatives from TIAAA. We know that this is a lot of information. So just a reminder, it is being recorded. So if we hope everyone can stay, but if anyone needs to get off, you'll have access to this later as well, or you can come back and revisit all that important stuff Bradley told you about the portal. So bear with us. We'll be back at 2:25.
Did it run? All right, welcome back. We're again so thankful to have our friends with the TIAAA here, Tennessee Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association, Executive Director, Mr. Mike Elson, formerly longtime athletic director at Christ Presbyterian Academy is with us. And so Mike, we're going to turn it over to you.
Mark, thank you so much. And it's an honor to be on the call with all of you today. And we know that so much of what you do goes in the unseen. And so I want to go ahead and say thank you before this school year even gets started. And I was having flashbacks of as Bradley and Mark and Emily and everyone was rolling through all of those slides. So we're right there with you. We've been in the trenches and we're going to continue to be in the trenches. So you can see that we've got a lot of information to cover here. a lot of things that we're involved with as an athletic director association. Bradley mentioned the portal. We want to make sure on your portal, on your school portal page, that you sign up to be a TIAAA member, and it can be embedded into your dues. And then through a platform called AMP, we will communicate opportunities, insights, tools that can help you from a general perspective as an athletic director. So with that, let's go ahead and hit the next slide. All right, so I want to talk about the mission for a minute, and also want to mention our president, Randy Rogers, was on the call. He's the principal at Jefferson County High School in East Tennessee. He had to go, and then Patrick Miller, one of our board members and our leadership training coordinator for our curriculum offerings, is on the call, and Patrick may jump in at any moment. He is the athletic director at Clarksville Northeast Middle School. But we want you to see that for us, there's some keywords here. I'm not going to read everything to you, but on the third line at the end, it talks about enhance, equip, and excel. And that's our primary purpose as a TIAAA organization, is we want to enhance your opportunities. We want to equip you with tools to be a great leader, not just a manager. And then we want to see you excel in your school communities as an athletic director. If you keep this terminology in mind, think about us as athletic leaders in our schools. We're education-based athletic leaders. Yes, there's travel sports and we have to coexist, but our purpose, our primary purpose, is that we're education-based. And then at the bottom of this statement, you can see the high value we hold in working with the TSSAA, TACA. We were in the office of the Tennessee school superintendents on Tuesday, and we really value those teammates, and it really helps strengthen the infrastructure and position for all of us as athletic directors. So just want to make sure that you see that, and we keep that as a high priority. Okay, next slide, please, and thank you. All right, and even before I do this, I want to thank Mark Reeves and all of the TSSAA office staff for allowing us this opportunity, and also for being our partners. When you think about TSSAA and the magnitude of responsibility, look at these numbers. They're responsible for 120,000 plus student athletes, over 800 schools. I believe it's even more like 900. Thousands of coaches. There's 95 counties in our state. And we're excited. And I've watched us grow. I've been part of this organization since a gentleman named Mr. Richard Carroll founded it in the late 80s, early 90s. And, you know, we were hovering around 35 to 40 members for a number of years. And now Tennessee can proudly say that we have nearly 330 members, and we're growing. And we're part of a national association. Of course, you can see that's at an all-time high of 13,500 members. The TIAAA is really an affiliate of the NIAAA, and we lean on them for a lot of the benefits and educational opportunities for our, for our athletic directors. Okay, next slide, please. Focus. Everything goes back to supporting our student athletes. I'm going to show you a page in a minute that offers you 6 levels of certification. And as I've gone around the state the last couple of years, trying to about, the purpose we certified so that we can support student athletes and excellent what we offer professional development. I believe a few on here have taken some LTC courses. Patrick Miller, our board member, is certified at the highest level. Mr. Blair and Mr. Reeves are also pursuing leadership training course offerings. And there's like 8 to 10 offerings per course. And the leadership training program will be up to 56 4-hour. I will tell you personally, I've taken and have never found any better professional development to equip me as a leader, what I found in those LTC courses. And if you talk to anybody that's been to a state or national conference, the networking opportunities that are there, those of us who've been in this for a while, we have friends literally around the world that we can pick up the phone and call if we need advice, encouragement, or just need somebody to be a sounding board for. We'll plan to send some quarterly newsletters. And then as an NIAAA member, which we're a dual state means if you sign up to be a member, you're a member of the TIAAA and NIAAA. And there's a nice magazine called the IAA with great articles, outlining tools that can help you as an athletic leader. And then our Twitter account, if you're on Twitter or Facebook, you can go to at TIAAA _AD, and we'd like for you to follow us on Twitter, and you can see that we send out a lot of information, and we're very active on our social media channels. Okay, next slide, please. So one thing that has occurred the last couple of years, and I think I've seen a lot of female athletic directors on the call today, which is exciting. We're really trying to grow and help support the voice of the female athletic administrator. In the last 2 years, we've had 4 to 5 individuals lead our panel discussions. And here you can see a photo of last year's conference that was in April in Murfreesboro, Tennessee State AD Conference. And we were really proud to have these individuals, and they candidly spoke about what it's like to be an individual in the room where there may be 10 male and 2 female. And so we in Tennessee want to celebrate Title IX. We want to empower leadership in our female athletic directors. And there's a place with the TIAAA where that can occur. Again, just want you to know that that's a point of emphasis for our organization. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. So this is a list of individuals, or this photo is individuals from across the state of Tennessee that were statewide award recipients. You can see Mr. Reeves there, third from left, but one thing I want you to notice, there are 2 student athletes. On the far left is James Smith of Curry Ingram Academy, and then next to Josh Corey of the Titans, we have Randy School, Jefferson County, that was Natalie Moore. And Natalie was actually a Section 3 winner, which means that Section 3 has 8 states. And Natalie won a scholarship recipient of those 8 states. She was the winner. So big shout out to Natalie. As a member of the TIAAA and NIAAA, you have an option to nominate your student athletes for that Student Essay Scholarship Award. And it's based on being a multiple sport athlete, being great in your community, and being strong academically. So I wanted to point out our winners from across the state, but especially those 2 students. Like I said earlier, Randy on the left there had to leave, and we have a new logo for our organization. And the gentleman on the right, Scott Carroll, who's now our past president, he designed our logo and did an outstanding job of creating great professional imagery for the TIAAA. So again, we're thankful. There have just been so many individuals through the years that have helped grow the TIAAA. And there on the left in that photo, you're looking at 2 very important leaders in our state. So, why does certification matter? I mentioned the student athletes, and their focus of health, but how about the safety of the coaches and the parents and the officials? And, we just finished writing a class about partnering with parents. And as a new athletic director, we want to encourage you to have a positive mindset with parents and officials not one of negativity, which can seem to drown out in our culture. So that's another thing with our professional development is, we're going to focus on finding solutions, not being combative. And then we all know mental health is a major challenge. It's an issue. I mentioned earlier, being able to pick up the phone and call somebody just to lean on another AD because they know what it feels like to be in this position. That's important to TIAAA. Do you have an emergency action plan for your facilities? Do you practice that with your coaches? If there's an emergency, do they know where the ambulance goes? Do you know who your SRO is? And do you inspect your athletic facilities every day, looking for jagged fence part components, loose bolts on a bleacher, the padding on your backboard, so on and so forth? That's our responsibility as athletic directors. Last year we did a pre-game, in-game, and post-game game day responsibilities workshop, and I believe we have that on our website. But there's a plethora of things that we're all responsible for on game day, and it's good for you to review it. And then I didn't mention our athletic trainers, but they truly are the hero of the athletic department. And I know for me as a young AD, I was our athletic trainer. I learned to tape ankles. I did it too tightly, and everybody their feet turned blue. But we got to know where to go get the ice, and we got to know how to tape an ankle, and so on and so forth. So if you have a trainer, good for you. If you don't, as an athletic director, we're responsible for it. And I have seen that been on both sides of the ledger. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so earlier I mentioned, and I know this is a lot of information, and I'm glad that Bradley mentioned earlier, we're going to be able to share it. We also plan to put this workshop on or this demo on our TIAAA website. And you can see the different levels of certification and all of the requirements within each one. I believe we have, if you go down the third line on the left or the third box, the CAA, the Certified Athletic Administrator. Historically, we probably have about 50 CAA, our athletic directors who have achieved a CAA, and we're at about 20 of the CMAA. And I'm going to call on Patrick Miller, if he's still on the call, to see if he can speak certification a little bit in more detail. Patrick?
Thanks, Mike. There are 6 certifications. The Registered Athletic Administrator, that's for 2 classes, and you can be a Registered Athletic Administrator by completing 501 and 502. Both of those classes will be offered at the National Conference in Nashville in December the 9th through the 13th, and Mike will talk about that as well. And then the Registered Middle School Athletic Administrator, there's a couple more courses there that you have to complete to be a registered middle school athletic administrator. Then to be a certified athletic administrator, there's some legal classes, some Title IX, some of those courses, those legal courses that are very, very important to complete as well for CAA. And then you have to have 2 years of athletic administration experience to achieve your CAA. And then finally, the last one is the highest one, the CMAA, the Certified Master Athletic Administrator, as well, those legal courses, and also those management and leadership courses in the 600 and 700 level to be that. And then there's 2 international certifications as well as you see there. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And I'm going to put Mike and I's contact information in the chat. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to one of us.
Thank you, Patrick. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. All right, there we go. So one thing we want you to note is the value of this curriculum. And I have the opportunity to represent Tennessee and serve on the curriculum development team of the NIAAA. And this isn't just some information, PowerPoints that have been created by athletic directors. It's fully certified. So this curriculum and this organization, the NIAAA's LTC program, Leadership Training Program, is certified. It was the first non-school program to be certified in the history of Cognia and National Certification Commission. The NFHS Learn program, which a lot of your coaches can take, has become the second fully registered, fully certified program that's not a school. But the NIAAA and its LTC curriculum, they were certified like a couple years ago. You can see the certification process on the right. And if you go to NIAAA.org and go to Leadership Training Institute, it will also walk you through this. So just want to make sure we point that out. Thank you. Next slide, please. All right, another important part of this, and credit, huge shout out to Patrick Miller for making this happen. Also, Tony Clower of Roane County is a TIAAA board member and has been a friend of the TIAAA for a number of years. Any LTC course offered at our State Athletic Directors Conference every April receives tassel credit. So last year we had some principals, we had individual school leaders that took LTC courses because they needed tassel credit to keep up to date on their professional development. So this can be for principals, superintendents, anybody that needs tassel credit. On the left of your screen, you can see there's an NIAAA-U, a cohort study. Patrick Miller is currently in a mentor cohort. We've had individual leaders like Reed McFadden, Kelly Fish, Barry Wade, different individuals in our state that have been members of a cohort study. And then on the right, you can see a description. I know it's hard to see, but we'll share this with you. A description of each of the 4-hour courses. And we're only showing 6 of the 56 that are available to you. Thank you. Next slide, please. So on November the 5th in Memphis, we're working with the Shelby County Interscholastic Athletic Association and their leader. India is a board. She has achieved the highest level of certification as CMAA, and the NIAAA every 3 years will offer states the opportunity to provide free professional development courses, and you can see 501 and 502. We can do that in person, and once those are completed, you submit your information, and the NIAAA will give you 503. This is like a $250 to $300 value. So if you've never taken an LTC course and you have an interest in going to Memphis, if you'll email Patrick or myself, we'll start out by emailing you registration form, but we're also going to have it available on our AMP platform, provided by Final Forms for anyone wanting to register. And we're working on that right now. Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm not going to stay long here, but I want you to just take note of, pictures from our exhibit hall. Upper left was our keynote speaker last year, Derek Furlow. Derek wrote a book called What's Next. He was a teammate of Inky Johnson and did a fabulous job being our keynote speaker. Middle, in the top row in the middle, was 3 of our board members, Jessica Spafford from Greenback, Jeremy Davidson from Martin, Tennessee, and Shane Pascal, the principal of Bradford High School. And we just have an amazing group of people that are our board members, and we've all really grown together through the years. And then you can see several other photos of the exhibit hall. If you ever go to a conference, make sure you go in and demonstrate respect for the exhibitors, because they financially keep organizations like the TSSAA, TIAAA, TACA, and others going. Thank you. Next slide, please. So what are the benefits? You get liability insurance. You can see you get $2 million by becoming a member. I mentioned the quarterly magazine earlier. Life insurance, that's a little bit better than nothing. You purchase long-term health care. You get discounts on state and national conferences. We've mentioned professional growth and certification. At the bottom left, you can see national committees. We have several individuals on national committees. Scott Dorsett and Patrick Miller and Corby Lucas, and Patrick, maybe I'm forgetting someone, but Kelly Fish is a national instructor. Patrick's a national instructor. So Tennessee is really well represented on a national level. And the middle box on the bottom is about student athletes. And again, we've had ADs get recognized on national level by the NIAAA, and it's really important because it leaves a legacy for the future. And I mentioned Richard Carroll earlier. Richard Carroll was at Sullivan North High School in East Tennessee, and without individuals like Richard Carroll doing a lot of work in the unseen as a pioneer, we would not be part of this presentation today. Okay, thank you. Next slide. All right, so how do you join? Well, if you have your phone, maybe take a picture of this particular page. There's a box on your school portal page where you can check that box. You can sign up for membership. Again, you can see as our membership grows, it just strengthens the offerings and opportunities that we can provide for athletic directors this school year and in years to come. So we want to encourage all of you as a new athletic director to get involved. Don't sit back, don't wait around. And I'll tell you personally, when I attended my first athletic directors conference in 1992 in downtown Nashville, I sat in the back row and I was scared to death and didn't know what anybody would think. And I was at a private school, and how do you get involved? And I just decided one day to go to the front row and, roll my sleeves up and ask Mike Kimmons and Mr. Carroll and others, how can I get involved? How can I help? And so I want to encourage all of you to do that same thing, but it starts with you becoming a member. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. All right, so I want to touch on our corporate sponsors really quickly. Final Forms is our lead sponsor. GoFan we all use for digital ticketing. They're a sponsor. And then Jason Foundation, Gipper, and BSN Sports. Okay, next slide, please. And we'll go through these quickly, but I love the image on the right that I found on Final Form's website about athletic management. When y'all are leaving this call today, this has got to be what you're thinking. You're juggling all these different balls, from the weight room to grabbing a microphone to, what time is it, and who hasn't turned in a form yet, and so on and so forth. But Final Forms is our only gold sponsor, and they actually added on $1,000 at the end of the year to give us some scholarship money from our last conference, and we hope to get that annually. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. So our silver level sponsors, and by the way, for each of our sponsors, if you go to their website, you can check on a demo box and request a demo for any of this information. How do you use digital ticketing? Well, GoFan sponsors TIAAA, so thankfully they sponsor the TIAAA as well. And Patrick Knowles and different individuals have done a good job for us for several years. All right, next slide, please. All right, I'm going to start on the right with the Jason Foundation. We had David Martin from the Jason Foundation, and Coach Martin actually coached Jason before he committed suicide. And so he's very, very committed to this. And I think a lot of you have to take a few of these courses, but they've jumped on board with the TIAAA. We're very thankful for that. And then Gipper is, if you look at our TIAAA social media post and you see awesome backgrounds, Gipper has provided that for us. And so those are two other important sponsors. We're also working with TPG, Teal Properties Group, who helps TSSAA, TACA, and TIAAA garner sponsors so that we can strengthen the financial infrastructure of our organization. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. All right, yesterday Tennessee launched the first ever Inside Out middle school initiative. And special thanks to Mark Reeves for all of his years of commitment to the Inside Out initiative. Joe Blair's jumped on board with TSSAA, and he's also very involved in this. And so here's a great workshop. Here's a great outline for you to ask your coaches. Why do you coach? You can substitute the word teacher because a great coach is a great teacher. Why do we coach or lead the way we do? What does it feel like? How do we gain empathy? Well, we go put ourselves in the shoes of others, and it's kind of like you got to reverse the role. What does it feel like to be led by me or coached by me? And then for me, after 35 years at my school at CPA, I can always ask the question, how do I define success? And a lot of times, with this initiative, it's brought out the common language. We may not know success for 10, 20, or 30 years down the road. Patrick Miller and I have talked about this a lot. And a lot of times we make an impact in the unseen on individuals that we don't know we're impacting. So how do we define success? We have a transformational coaching mindset, which is intrinsic. Transactional is about, look at me, look how many championships I've won, look how great a coach I am. Well, those aren't the best coaches, but the coaches that tap into the heart and truly love the players they're called to lead, that is how we define success. So if you're not involved in the Inside Out initiative, I encourage you to do that and make it more than an initiative, make it sustainable. And these 4 questions can serve as a cornerstone for leading a transformational athletic program. So that's our encouragement to you. Thank you. Next slide, please. All right. If any of you walk or run, put your earbuds in, and subscribe to these podcasts. They're all free. And I know for me, I try to walk 4 to 5 miles a day, and I'm always tuning into one of these different podcasts built by athletic directors for athletic directors from literally around the world. And there are more than this, but we wanted to introduce to you just some options. This is truly a great way to be mentored because you're listening. And a lot of times we listen to return conversation quickly without thinking. The beauty of podcast is it allows us to think, it allows us to marinate, hear the stories from others, and then the goal would be for us to have application or apply it, the positive lessons to leadership principles that we're guiding our athletic programs with. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. So this is a monster, and I will offer this. I've done several workshops on the 14 legal duties of a coach and an athletic director. And I'm not going to sit here and think I've got all the answers. I pray to be a lifelong learner. And but if you ever need me to come and speak to your coaches, I've gone to, like I said, several schools and done this. A lot of times I end up doing a workshop on the 14 legal duties of a coach and athletic director. Please email me. This is so important. And I went over a decade as an athletic director without ever knowing about these legal duties. And arguably they're all important, but arguably the most important ones are, if you look at the first 3 of properly planning, supervising, and then safety. So, just kind of let that marinate a little bit, and this will be good. This will be a good slide for you on the back end of this when you download it onto your desktop. But this is really, really important. And in the LTC courses, those 14 legal duties, several of them are mentioned in those courses. We really want to encourage you. This is such an honor for the state of Tennessee to be able to host the National Athletic Directors Conference. There will be over 2,000 ADs from around the country at Opryland Hotel, December 9 through 13. You can go on the NIAAA website and register. And the networking is just phenomenal. And it literally was a career changer for me when I went to my first one in 2003. And here's a little bit of more specific information. And by the way, you can click on that link or copy that link. But the Opryland Hotel room rate is $179. We'll never see that again in our lifetime. And Patrick and I have talked about this. We give a little hint that you might want to park in the Opry Mills parking lot and walk over if you're going to be a day tripper to the conference. And you'll see why. There's no cost if you park at Opry Mills. But anyway, wanted to bring that out. So here's our host committee led by our chairman, Kelly Fish. And there are different individuals from around the state that are serving on this host committee. Again, our goal, our dream would be to have over 100 ADs in the state of Tennessee attend this conference and really do a great job of representing our great state. You can see the image that I mentioned Scott Carroll earlier about enhancing, equipping, and helping ADs excel. Here's a quick hitter about our state AD conference in 2023, be at the Embassy Suites Hotel. More information will be coming in January. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. All right, so I wanted to show you quickly, these are our last two slides. Here are board members. So you might want to look and see which individual is representing you in your section of the state and reach out to these individuals with any questions. We've grown our board from 9 to 10 members to, and you can turn to the next slide. We have several roles now, not just sections. Kelly is our membership chair. Barry is our treasurer. Cameron is helping us with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And Cameron is also leading Valor Collegiate Academy into the QPA, which is a quality program assessment similar to a school going through accreditation. So real proud of Cameron for stepping up there. You can see Patrick, Matt Cox directs our communication. Greg handles all our social media. Tony helps us as educational specialist. And then I have the privilege of serving with all of these individuals. So that's our last slide. It is 2:58. I know that was like being an auctioneer, but we made it before 3 o'clock. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Mark Reeves or whoever's here from the TIAAA. Can't hear.
There we go. Now I think I was muted. Sorry about that.
There we go.
Want to thank everybody again for joining. Really appreciate you taking some of your valuable time. TIAAA is really known for the 3 C's, compliance, championships, and classification. And I know that's a big part of what we do every day, and certainly we take all those responsibilities very seriously. But the most important thing that we can do is to provide you all who are providing these opportunities for kids with resources that will help you do your job. You're truly changing the arc of the students' lives that you're serving. We all know that the activities that they are involved in are certainly going to help shape them as they become the future of this great nation. So we're honored to have this opportunity and hope that this has been helpful for you. Once again, it's been said before, if you have any questions about any of this information, feel free to reach out. This has been recorded, and it will be available for you to watch back or to look back on anything that you may have missed. Thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Have a great school year.